Welcome back to Engineer, the on-site researcher whose IQ is about the same as their white blood cell count. Your secondaries use the power of planet-shattering might to vaporize any minor inconvenience that may plague your sightline. Misuse of this equipment can result in severe bodily harm and mild natural disasters. So don your bomb squad armor, join my Discord to increase your casualty count, and let's get into these atom erasers. Starting off is probably the most complicated weapon, so let me give you a quick guide on how to operate it. You take this metal cylinder, place it gently into this tube, and the Deepcore 40mm PGL is a break-action grenade launcher that somehow got approved for subterranean use. I don't know if you realize this, but setting off explosives in confined spaces like rooms, tunnels, and caves is the fastest way to make your brain leak out of your ears. Be gone. Inescapable shockwaves aside, if you don't want to become a former alive person, you better stay as far away from these grenades as possible. There you can find out what it feels like to have your limbs atomized and any remaining parts of your body be replaced with third-degree radiation burns. Don't worry, not all of the overclocks for the Deepcore are as cataclysmic as that. Clean Sweep just performs minor adjustments to the composition of your rounds to improve how wide and painful each explosion is without the need for a Geiger counter. The damage increase isn't noticeable enough to merit using it on a larger adversary, but that small amount mixed with the area increase makes it exceptional at leveling groups of grunts as well as unleveling the ground. On an even more simple note, we have Pack Rat. This overclock looks at your measly amount of munitions and decides to increase that quantity to maximize efficiency of glyphid gooifying between resupplies.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
You get 2 more grenades. That's it. Compact Rounds realizes that giving you a couple more grenades just isn't enough. Granted, we had to sacrifice some of the explosive materials in your rounds to achieve this. Sabotaging your ammunition results in the same stat changes as from Clean Sweep, just in reverse. The damage of your blast is decreased slightly, along with the radius being smaller as well. At least you have 5 extra ammo to waste at your leisure. Speaking of wasting company resources, I've concocted an extra expensive mixture to allow you to kill things with even less efficiency.
Would you like to know more?
The RJ250 compound is significantly lighter than the combustibles in your standard grenade. This makes them easier to transport and thus grants you a significant boost to the amount you can carry. It's worth noting that this is a multiplier, so it synergizes with the ammunition increase mods. These lighter explosives also allow you to reload with more haste. The problem with this magical substance is that it doesn't actually do too well when it comes to rupturing skeletal structures. This causes an immense damage decrease, but also reveals to us what the RJ stands for in its name: Rocket Jump. If you decide to fight with your instincts of self-preservation, you can walk into the blast radius of your projectile and catapult yourself across the map almost as well as a stabber vine on a 45-degree angle. What the fuck was that? With this mobility, you can quickly scale cliffs, negate fall damage if you have the mad skills, or even catch up to the drill dozer when it's doing something stupid. Where are you going? Why are you doing donuts? With all that in mind, this damage decrease is more of a blessing since this amount of self-inflicted concussive force would be enough to turn you quadriplegic in mere moments. But that's nothing compared to the dangers of the next overclock, Fat Boy. Over the last few adjustments, we've been gradually decreasing the weight of your ammo by giving you less heavy and less volatile materials. So what if we replaced your gunpowder and igniter with uranium-235? Now your projectiles weigh about 5 pounds each and are as powerful as... This increased weight decreases your ammo count by a significant multiplier and makes it so that aiming with your weapon is less about line of sight and more about applying your knowledge of parabolas from Algebra 1. On the topic of using calculations to aim, any dwarf worth their bitter gems is going to equip the proximity trigger mod to maximize their damage radius at the cost of occasionally playing a little game called Try Not to Erase All Evidence of Yourself from This Plane of Existence. That reminds me, I haven't gotten to the positives yet. Having your munitions go nuclear instantly atomizes anything not strong enough to survive swimming in the core of a star.
Everyone in McKinney is dead.
Did you know that the center of a nuclear explosion can reach about 100 million degrees Celsius? That is about 6.5 times as hot as the center of the sun.
It's hot in McKinney.
If Earth plasmifying temperatures weren't enough for you, the aftermath of your localized apocalypse is somehow more cruel. With help from an increased blast radius, everything left behind will become highly irradiated for an extended period of time. This makes any bugs that somehow survived the blast wish they hadn't, and anything trying to reinforce their fallen brethren liquefy on their way to battle. My advice for this overclock? Use the 4 times area damage multiplier to max out the efficiency of your pocket extinction events and make the most of your 3 nukes. Now I am become Death, the destroyer of bugs. Let's push the horrors of atomic weaponry to the side for a moment and talk about the Fat Boy's comedic counterpart, hyperpropellant. Instead of instantly erasing anything smaller than a bulldozer, this overclock replaces your doomsday devices with what I can only describe as a rock with a thruster on it. With a plus a lot to your projectile velocity, this mini-meteor begins to resemble a bullet rather than a bomb. And that trend continues, since the blast radius is reduced by a 0.3 multiplier. You also have 2 less bricks to lob at things, but that's whatever. What makes these rocket-propelled cinder blocks truly stand out is that their direct damage is astronomically increased. This means instead of blasting the floor to hit as many things as possible, you're going to want to bludgeon the biggest thing in your way with these grenade-shaped cannonballs. This is what I always imagine when talking about Hesh rounds. High explosive, squash head. You may have noticed it already, but the force at which you apply these tank shells to their targets causes their corpses to enter the next dimension, preventing on-death effects and striking fear into whatever lies beyond the veil. Okay, we'll stop talking about reality-altering forces and instead cover something a bit more tame. Repurposed construction equipment that catapults fences made of the fourth state of matter to bisect and even quadsect anything in your way. The breach cutter was a bit too dangerous for use on the space rig, so management decided to give it to the one person whose sanity is almost as low as the drillers and see what would happen to the population count of Hoxies. Man, everyone else gets pistols. What the heck is this character? Lightweight Cases does exactly what its name suggests. The vessels containing this churning magenta mass are remade with lighter metals to increase how many rounds you can carry. Naturally, these lighter cases also make reloading a bit less cumbersome, so you can dispense more plasma walls in a shorter time frame. Roll control is another one of those rare clean overclocks that actually change the mechanics of your weapon. You can shoot lasers out normally with neither buffs nor debuffs, but holding down the fire button causes your next projectile to spin in a straight line. Upon lifting your finger, or whatever other appendage you operate your mouse with, the rotation will stop and cannot be restarted. At first glance this may seem useless, but you will eventually find moments where you want to kill something on the ground and 7 feet above the ground. Wait a minute. Alright, I just thought of this while I was writing. You can see where I had my epiphany. I wonder... Oh my god. Equipping the Plasma Trail mod with this overclock creates a corkscrew of burning material. I don't know how good this combo is since I kept curving my beams around the enemies, but the visuals are funny and even missing can result in some damage. Anyway, back to the overclock's actual use. If you find yourself needing to kill something both below and above, you can just rotate your plasma cutter to adjust for the enemy's positioning. This feature is also optimal at removing bugs from the sides of walls. But when it comes to floors, you may want to invest in something a bit more efficient. Stronger plasma current is here to fill that need as the breach cutter's mythical third clean overclock. This one increases the energy pumped into the projectile to increase their damage output. On top of that, the higher amount of power makes your atomizing wave last longer and by extension travel farther. Bringing back that click and hold mechanic is Return to Sender. Holding down the fire button seemingly sends out a laser as normal, but once you release it, it remembers all the crimes you've committed and reverses its trajectory to try and sever your spinal column from your brainstem. Sadly, their treason is in vain since you can't damage yourself with this weapon. But it does do damage to everything else. Since you're doubling your DPS, the amount of cartridges you can carry is reduced by 6. If this was truly balanced, as all things should be, your ammo would be reduced by half. But it's not. That means your damage is most definitely increased, as long as you don't try to sprint while holding the trigger, thus activating the effect early. The only thing that will increase is your depression levels. High Voltage Crossover uses the power of faulty wiring to pump some lightning into your laser beam. Now anything that survives being lightsabered in half will be electrocuted as well. I went with a strategy of stacking DOTs for this overclock, but everything I looked at died too fast. So it must be working! Since the ammunition we're using for this overclock didn't pass quality assurance testing, the charges don't exactly fit correctly into the cases. This production defect reduces your mag capacity by a multiplier of 0.6. That does mean you can still increase it with mods, just not by much. You know what else has decreased magazine capacity by a multiplier instead of a finite amount? Spinning Death. I already introed with one of the negatives, so I might as well cover those parts first. As I mentioned earlier, your mag capacity is reduced by a multiplier. The difference is that instead of it being 0.6, this one is 0.3. You're basically rocking a single-shot magazine with this one. Additionally, your ammo count and damage are multiplied down, so any attempt to increase your stats will be an uphill battle. With that out of the way, we can talk about why this projectile is making you nauseous. Firing your breach cutter propels your projectile a pitiful distance forward before locking it in place. Once unfolded, your laser gate will attempt to cut a hole through reality. It won't succeed, but it will smack anything in its radius over and over again. The lifetime of this circular saw is increased by a metric ton, and the amount of wide it is increased as well to hit as many things as many times as possible. For maximum bug battering, I demand you use the Disruptive Frequency Tuning mod. This will stun anything that wanders inside and prevents them from escaping until either the projectile dissipates or their soul detaches from their body like a lizard abandoning their tail. For extra spicy battle blending, I found that the Plasma Trail mod made the whole experience just so much worse for anything that wasn't me. On the topic of torturing glyphids with damage over time, we have Inferno. This is another hard one to capture since most of the enemies already instantly die to this weapon. Because of that, the damage is reduced by a whole lot and the armor break is almost a quarter of its potential. Replacing it is the addition of heat damage, fire damage, and a hidden status effect that deals both of those to their target over the course of 5 seconds. All of this ignition means your breach cutter instantly combusts anything it passes through, boiling both their exteriors and any organs caught in the crossfire. Or cross plasma. Cuts commercial, please. Alright, now that I've washed out my non-existent mouth with soap, let's continue. The Shard Diffractor is the only weapon in the game that is a direct product of our actions during a mission. Harvesting the power of one of these things, we turn the tables on Hoxie's by using its own defenses against it. This weapon stores a charge of energy that can be pumped through the crystal to achieve devastating results. This death ray heats up its target, starts melting anything nearby, and disintegrates whatever you're looking at. Sometimes that's more than just enemies. On top of that, I'm pretty sure the crystal we stole just absorbs the souls of its victims, since the biomass converter modification increases the amount of charge whenever you liquefy an enemy. I don't care what the title of this mod implies, there is no way you're converting biomass here. This is straight up blood magic. Releasing the trigger or running out of lives to consume with your Philosopher's Stone will cause your weapon to recharge over a short period of time. Now that I've gone over the basics, yes, using alchemy to convert souls into a prolonged ki blast is part of the basics, let's talk about the Overclocks. Efficiency tweaks is the trusty ammo increase with 0 downsides. Your battery capacity has been increased as well as your charge capacity. This means you can fire for longer before you need to recharge, and you can wait a little longer before you need to resupply. That's it for the cleans. This weapon is too epic to have more than one, so it has 3 balanced overclocks instead, starting with Automated Beam Controller. Now with this one you have to be extra careful as to when you decide to use it, since pulling the trigger will unleash a torrent of fire that cannot be suppressed. Unless you use any mechanics that would cancel an animation, like swinging your pickaxe. If you manage to stop your mini Godzilla beam, you will still lose half of your remaining charge to punish you for your actions. Call it a blessing or a curse, but your max charge is reduced by 20%, so your laser doesn't last as long, but you lose less ammo when you cancel. On the other hand, your fire rate is increased, so your beam bursts better, but you lose more ammo faster when you mess up. We'll just increase your ammo capacity in case you pull your trigger by accident or something. Additionally, the recharge time is decreased, allowing for multiple barrages in semi-quick succession. Slowing things down a bit is Feedback Loop. Instead of swiftly dispatching foes with a rapid assault of heat waves, this overclock cranks up the temperature with every second. Holding down the Kill Things button slowly ramps up your weapon's power. Starting at the default numbers, every second that goes by increases your damage and splash radius. Since this increase is based on time and does not have a cap, I'd advise increasing your charge capacity with the Aluminum Foil DIY mod. This is also a good chance to remind you about Biomass Converter. Tell me, what happens when infinite scaling encounters infinite fuel? Alright, I lied a little.
You can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars.
Biomass Converter only gives you 3 ammo every quarter second, and I'm pretty sure there's a cap on Feedback Loop stat increase. At some point. So the best you'll get is an effect radius large enough to evenly melt a small school bus. The big ol' stat boosts you accumulate get reset every time the laser stops, and your ammo is decreased to limit the amount of times you can create a localized solar flare. For this next one, instead of increasing how wide our evaporation radius is, we're going to focus our beam to create scientifically baffling results. Volatile Impact Reactor takes the concept of burning ants with a magnifying glass to the next level, except these tweaks aren't for dealing bonus damage to tiny sugar thieves. With these adjustments, your beam is hot enough to instantly liquefy any surfaces you assault.
I think steel boils at about this temperature, so...
Look, weathermen reacting to big numbers is funny to me. Blasting the surrounding walls of Hoxie's will cause the rock and stone to grow molten blisters, along with igniting anything that walks upon it. The Dazzler module modification will aid you in this endeavor by slowing down anything that gets too close to your laser reconstruction of the topography. To achieve these obsidian dissolving results, we had to narrow your area radius by 50%. Also, the tech we crammed in there to make the floor, in fact, lava, has reduced your charge capacity to a point where you won't be able to melt your way through terrain. I have a quick question for you. Have you ever looked at your platform gun and wondered, why the heck would I use anything other than repellent additive? Well, I have your answer. With Plascrete Catalyst, we have finally decided to weaponize your support tool. Firing your laser directly at a platform causes it to begin boiling, thus superheating the air around it. This causes your area damage to double, area radius to double, and one more thing. After superheating the surface of a platform for a whole second without interruptions, the compound within will start to react, causing a massive explosion. This blast radius steals a large large amount of damage, can break armor, and can even cause fear to anything that survives. Also, more often than not, you'll have extra plascrete left over for you to detonate. So, I'll bring your attention back to the question at hand. Why would we use anything other than repellent additive? To invite the bugs to ground zero. Dazzler module will help us with this as well, since the slowdown will essentially trap enemies in the blast radius and let them pile up for a bigger killing spree. By the way, it takes longer to recover from firing with this overclock, so make sure you finish off your targets before letting go. You also have 50 less ammo. Lastly on our list of 148 overclocks, we have Overdrive Booster. With this overclock, nothing changes. Literally nothing. All your stats are the same. Unless you press R! Trying to reload while firing will activate your This locks your weapon into overdrive, forcing you to fire until out of charge and increasing your recharge time after use. Like the automated beam controller overclock, this ability can be cancelled by varying means but consumes half of your remaining ammo as punishment. Except this time we aren't going to do that. Why? Because of a 2.5 damage multiplier. Using your unleashes the true might of the sun on your enemies, reducing any organics to a bubbling grease. The amount of energy you're outputting is enough to force you back, so you have to keep your feet planted to avoid melting in half anything behind the diffractor, including yourself! Though the efficiency of weaponizing a pulsar is enough to make any other threats to your safety disintegrate. And there you have it, every secondary engineer overclock as of critical corruption. And now for important channel news. Actually, before Past Me talks about that, I've got to say that the $1 tier just released on my Patreon, and you can get your name right here as well as a special Discord role. Some of you may be sad that we reached the end of our character list. Again. But don't worry, I'll still make videos on the season updates, I have other games I'm releasing videos for, and I have a few more things I could possibly cover in Deep Rock. You're welcome to leave suggestions in the comments below, and if you think of something in the future, you could always post your idea in my Discord. Link in the description. Anyway, stay clear of the Rockpox miners, and I'll see you when you make it to the finals.